20 Years of Intent to Throw and Swing Hard, Selected Topics, Part 3. Left you at the last section, or concluded the last section, with a warning. Proceed with caution. Danger, warning, danger zone. And again, I'll repeat what I said when I conclude the section, part number 2, is the reason why I say this is because once a player has been throwing a baseball a certain way, swinging a bat a certain way for a number of years, it becomes more and more difficult as time goes on to change how that happens. And you have to be very, very careful. You as a coach have to be totally committed. It's a time-consuming process. It's a resource-consuming process, and the player has to be totally committed. Has to totally understand. You, the coach, it's your responsibility to make sure he totally understands what it is you're trying to achieve and how you're trying to achieve it. Enough said. Which brings us to the year 2016. 20 years of intent to throw hard. Some highlights. What I've listed here are some of what I would call maybe signature SETPRO developments or areas of emphasis. Not necessarily something that I developed, uniquely, but I've emphasized or applied to throwing a baseball, swinging a baseball bat. Trial and error. Trial and error is, I've said this so many years. It's how we learn how to move our body. From day one, we have no idea how to walk. We have no idea how to reach in grass. We have no idea how to crawl. We have no idea how to do anything. It all comes through trial and error. It comes through observation. It comes through mom and dad saying, "Oh, look how cute he is. Look how nice he, giving praise, feedback, all of the above." Inverted W. The most controversial concept that I came up with at SETPRO, and I'll talk more about that. Scapular loading. All hard throwing pitchers scapular load. It's not something, and contrary to popular belief, you can teach it. It's not something that you're born with. Remember, trial and error. We're not born with scapular loading. Scapular loading is the upper part of throwing hard. Pelvic loading is the lower part of throwing hard. It has to do with the lower body from the basically from the middle of the body downward, whereas scapular loading is from the middle, more from the standpoint of belly button upward. PCRW. I PCRW to me is something that I believe is so powerful, so important, yet so misunderstood or so neglected or so just written off as fluff. PCRW is what determines how effectively we're going to throw the baseball or swing the bat. It stands for posture, control, rotation, and whip. Tempo. Tempo, I struggled a little bit with trying to come up with a nice way to describe this, or a sexy way to describe it. The best way I can say is tempo is the engine that drives the throwing and swing process. It's what makes the whole thing work. Bowflex bow, a very specific concept, part of the throwing process. It's likened to the handle of the buggy whip. Throwing is a whipping process. It's not an arm strength process. It's a whipping process, and the Bowflex flow is important to that whipping process. And then we have two topics that I think have caused a lot of misunderstanding, controversy: overload, underload, and long toss. And I'm going to talk more specifically about those. We start off with trial and error. There's an article I did a lot of research prior to putting this presentation together. I've only do this once a year for Lance, and last year I did it on Tommy John surgery, and it was okay. But I want to try and do something this year that was a little sexier, had more direct application to what coaches and players needed. And so I did a lot of research, and I found an interesting article called "Inside the Brain of an Elite Athlete." And I'm going to read this statement. The two most important characteristics of reinforcement learning are trial and error search and learning in the face of delayed reward. Three important sub-elements of reinforcement learning are policy, reward function, and value function. Basic, as I said, this first part of this basically says that the only way we learn how to do movement, really, most for the 99.9% of what we do, is through trial and error. We try something, we see the results, we're not happy with it, or we're happy with it, we continue on, or if we're not happy with it, we try to make a change. And that's what the coach's job is to try and direct us as best they can to those changes. The sub-elements, this is a very generic technical description, meaning it can be chess players, piano players, baseball players, hockey players, whatever. Policy simply refers to the process, the instruction, the training aspect of it. What are you doing specifically? Are you doing overload, underload training? Are you doing weightlifting? Are you doing, what kind of instruction are you getting? Is the coach videotaping you? That's the policy. The reward for the function is the results, knowledge of performance. Again, how do we know? One of my, I should put it up here, but I didn't. One of my, usually when I do these presentations, I had a saying, and the saying was, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Well, this is what the reward function is about, because that's what gives you your guidance in terms of, okay, I did this. What did I achieve? There needs to be some kind of feedback. And the value function is, why the heck are we doing this to begin with? Are we doing it to have fun practicing? Are we doing it to impress my girlfriend? Why are we doing this? It's basically the long-term goal. That's what the value function is. Trial and error and the coach's role. I'm going to read these again because I think they're important. A coach can direct trial and error search and thereby reduce parameter space to find the ideal policy. And then they can prevent an athlete from falling into local maxima for immediate rewards by evaluating a local action with respect to future goal of winning, and thereby allow the athlete to obtain the global maxima with maximum future rewards value. What does this all mean? What it means is, the first part is what I've said. What I simply say is, a coach's function is to minimize unproductive trial and error. That's it. Simple as that. The other part of this is that you can become very good. You can become an expert at mediocrity. Is the way I would like to say it. Meaning that you can practice, and if you practice, you can become very good with movement patterns that are less than optimal in terms of throwing a baseball or swinging a bat. And that coach's job is to be able to raise the flag and say, yeah, you're improving, but you're improving doing something that's not going to get you to your maximum goal or maximum reward. It's as simple as that. And again, this comes from the same article, Inside the Brain of the Elite Athlete. 10-year rule of deliberate practice. I didn't include this in my initial presentation. Again, this presentation is a long presentation. You only suppose I had an hour. 10-year rule is controversial. I've read where some people, coaches, whoever, believe it to be, well, I can become a professional at anything. If I work at it for 10 years, I can become a world-class chess player. If I work at it for 10 years, I can become a world-class singer. No, that's not what this is about. What it simply says is that, and this is from Erickson, is that if I practice the right things, if my practice is structured properly, that in general, this is general, there's always exceptions, this is a general rule, that it will take 10 years of deliberate practice, 10,000 hours, to reach my maximum genetic potential. I don't have the same genetic potential as you. You don't have the same genetic potential as your friend. We all have, there's certain genetic makeups. But in order to reach our genetic potential at whatever we undertake, it takes 10 years or 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. And what is deliberate practice is the key. Deliberate practice is practice that is designed to achieve the goal. The question that you have to ask yourself about practice is, are we practicing because it's fun? Are we practicing because it's enjoyable? In fact, most of deliberate practice is not fun, it's not enjoyable, but it was what is necessary to get the job done. It's necessary to get us to our goal. And that's the key here, is what is our goal? That's what deliberate practice is intended to achieve, is to achieve our goal. 2016, the year of the inverted W. And why is 2016 the year of inverted W? Well, we will find out, hopefully. My favorite saying person, Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Winston Churchill. He said this after the Battle of Britain about the British aviators who fought over Britain in the sky against the Germans. I paraphrase this. I've done this for a number of years. No, I've started this many years ago. Started saying it. Never have so many baseball pitching experts said so much with so few facts. Paul Nyman. Never, of all the things that I've done at SETPRO, the thing that I've gotten most notoriety for is the inverted W. And the notoriety, and I guess that's the word, notorious, is the inverted W has been attributed to all of the ills of UCL injury. Whether it's Mark Pryor, Steven Strasberg, or whoever, anybody who thinks they understand what the inverted W is says that's what will cause you to have UCL surgery, a Tommy John surgery, UCL injury. Most of this, if you read Jeff Passan's book, The Arm, he goes at great length to talk about a character, and I'm going to be kind and call him a character. His name is Chris O'Leary. He is the one person who I think is most responsible for promoting the inverted W as a UCL death machine or movement. Chris O'Leary, who has absolutely no baseball background, who is a marketing promotion person, who for whatever reason, maybe because he liked baseball or whatever, positioned himself as an expert on mechanics and picks topics. The quickest way to get notoriety, visibility in the baseball world is to pass yourself off as an injury expert. And that's what he did. And one of the things he latched onto was the inverted W and Steven Strasberg. And that's his headline, Death to the Inverted W. So why is 2016 the year of the inverted W? Let's see. Because finally, someone did what sane, competent people do. They do some research, and they do it in a professional manner. And this was done in regard to, not the least of which was the inverted W, but it was an important part of it. And they came to this conclusion. The inverted W throwing position was not associated with significantly greater risk of upper extremity injury requiring surgery in major league pitchers. Early trunk rotation was associated with significantly elevated risk of injury requiring surgery. This came out in 2016, and therefore this is the year, 2016 is the year of the inverted W. Why the inverted W? Why did I even come up with the inverted? And again, this was before anybody said the inverted W. It didn't exist until I created it. Because based on my experience, based on the video that I was doing, based upon looking at hundreds of pitches, thousands of hours of video, simulations, putting 3D throwing simulations together, I came up with, and doing research, finding papers wherever I could on what it took to throw a baseball optimally. This is what I came up with. Inverted W, why? It helps external rotation. External rotation is critical to throwing a baseball. External rotation causes the forearm to get in basically 180 degrees of external rotation, which is critically important because you have to get it into the plane of the rotation of the upper body in order to transfer momentum from the upper body to the arm. It creates a loop for whipping action. Creates quickness. Smooth. It actually promotes arm care, arm health. If you're going to, throwing a baseball 100 miles an hour is hugely stressful, and you want to be doing it in the most efficient, smoothest fashion. It enhances ball movement because of the way the ball comes out of the hand with the whipping action that's created. It creates deception. In a terminology, and I didn't have time to put this in this presentation, it's called affordances. Affordances are basically what we perceive as cues, visual cues that helps create movement. So with a pitcher, we're trying to concentrate on the baseball being released. Well, the inverted W gives good deception because if you look at what happens, the inverted W is behind the pitch. If it's done properly, the ball is down below, behind the pitcher. The batter doesn't see it until it's almost on top of him. And last but not least, It really has not been proven to cause injury. For all of the articles written by totally unknowledgeable people, nothing more than writers trying to promote themselves and sell their writings, it does not it's not proven to cause injury. It's on the contrary. There's research that has been done shows that there's no greater incident of injury with the inverted W than with anything else. Mr. Smoltz. Here's Mr. Smoltz, and this is where one of the first early clips that I saw. There's the inverted W right there. You can see how the forearm is down, comes up. It's one smooth motion, goes to external rotation, and then delivers the baseball. One of the key things that you're going to see later on in this presentation is how I work with players and the importance of what I call connection, no pauses, that the throwing process is continuous, tempo, that all goes together. So there is a very good example, the poster boy for the inverted W. To be continued.